My son is a prodigy. My proud husband loves to brag that our son inherited his genes. One day, at the dinner table, my son suddenly started conversing with my husband in German, a new language he had just learned. The son said, "Mom is so stupid. I hate her." My husband replied nonchalantly, "Her only purpose is to serve us. Luckily, you didn't inherit her inferior genes." I put down my utensils and looked at the father and son, who exchanged knowing smiles. At that moment, I suddenly felt weary. I got up with my bowl, walked into the kitchen, rinsed the dishes, and placed them in the sterilizer. The sterilizer buzzed, but its noise couldn't drown out the ongoing conversation between the father and son in the dining room. I dried my hands and walked past them towards the bedroom. They didn't even spare me a glance. If it were before, I might have cheerfully asked what they were talking about, even though I would always be impatiently dismissed. But now, my heart held no ripples. Whatever they said, whatever they discussed or argued about, that was their business as father and son. It had nothing to do with me. I rummaged through the closet and found an old suitcase from many years ago. Although the exterior was worn, it was still sturdy. I didn't have many clothes. Ever since Shang Ziha was born, I'd become lazy about my appearance, preferring to buy clothes online, wearing them until they were worn out, and then tossing them away. Looking at it now, the only decent clothes I had were those I bought before marriage. As I finished packing the suitcase, Shang Xiao walked in, pointing at the suitcase on the floor. "What are you doing with that junk?" Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos." I didn't reply and focused on zipping the suitcase. Xiao didn't think much of it either. He just went to the nightstand to grab a charging cable and said, "Go clean up the dining table. In a bit, my son and I are going to play Ludo." I didn't respond, and he had already left the room. The door closed with a click, and my zipper snapped shut. The two sounds intertwined, leaving my heart clear and bright. I changed into a trench coat I bought the year I graduated and started working. At that time, my mother said that since I was starting work, I needed to wear decent clothes. So she took me to a department store and spent 3,500 yuan on this designer coat. When Zhang Xiao found out, he insisted on dragging me back to return it, grumbling that 3,500 was enough for 2 months' living expenses for us. I refused to go, and we ended up having a big fight over it. In the end, my mother gave Shang Xiao 3,000 yuan to appease him. But after getting married, I never wore it again because my body changed drastically during pregnancy. And after the baby was born, I had to take care of him. Beautiful coat had to stay in the closet. The suitcase was squeaked against the wooden floor, and Zhang Zihao, sitting on the sofa watching TV, turned to glance at me when he heard the noise before quickly returning his attention to the screen. Xiang lay sprawled on the sofa, holding his charging phone, eyes curling at the corners of his mouth. He looked up at me when he heard the sound, then furrowed his brows tightly. "What are you doing?" I took a deep breath, and before I could say anything, Zhang Xiao added, "Didn't I tell you? First, clean up the dining table. We're going to play Ludo." I swallowed hard, nearly choking on my words as I barely managed to control myself from swinging the suitcase at him. "Clean it up yourself." In moving out, when Zhang Xiao heard me say this, he finally looked at me properly. He straightened up and frowned, watching me change my shoes. What do you mean?" I straightened up and glanced at Zhang Zihao, who was still focused on the TV, rubbing his tired eyes. Zhang Zihao's eyesight had been deteriorating, and he had an appointment at the hospital next Saturday for corneal shaping lenses. I pulled out my phone and sent Xiao the appointment information. "Remember to take him to the ophthalmologist next Saturday to see Dr. Gao." After saying this, I grabbed the suitcase and headed out the door. As Zhang Xiao caught up to me, the elevator was still going up. "Are you crazy? What you all of a sudden?" Xiao angrily whispered and then tried to grab my suitcase. I held it tightly, dodging his hand as he tried to pull me back. "I'm not crazy. Xiang Kao, had you forgotten?" I looked at the man before me, who was already starting to bald, and couldn't help but sneer. If it weren't for accidentally getting pregnant with Shang Zihao back then, I was planning to study in Germany. Zhang's eyes widened, as if he finally remembered how he and his son had humiliated me back then. And I understood German. He crossed his arms over his chest and said without any remorse, I forgot you knew German. You're not seriously sulking over something so trivial, are you? Along with Zhang Ziho. Is that enough? The elevator had reached the 7th floor. Here's the translation. Watch the numbers on the LCD screen rising continuously. Feeling a calmness I had never experienced before. It's not just about this. I glanced back at Zhang Xiao. I've had enough of living with you all. Zhang Xiao. Let's get a divorce. And you can have Zhang Zihao. The elevator doors opened with Zhang Xiao's furious roar. And I pulled my suitcase into the elevator, quickly pressing the close door button. In the final scene, I saw Zhang Xiao shouting for me to get out of his house, then storming back inside. I spent half the night at the airport, catching the earliest flight back to my parents' place. When I told them I wanted a divorce, they were silent for a long time. Finally, my dad shook the newspaper and asked, Have you had breakfast? I shook my head, and the hot tears spilled onto my jean, leaving dark stain. My mom wiped my tears and smiled gently. Let your dad make you some noodle. You of his oil, splash noodle. My dad had already set down the newspaper and was ambling into the kitchen with his hands behind his back. After breakfast, I pushed the suitcase into the room and collapsed onto the bed. Sleepiness washed over me quickly, and just before drifting off, I remembered many things. While other babies were still learning to speak, Zihao had already started reciting ancient poems. At first, Zhang Zhao and I didn't think much of it, believing Zhang Zihao was just a slightly clever ordinary child. It wasn't until Zhang Zihao was 3 and started kindergarten that the teacher came to visit, praising Zhang Zihao as a prodigy. Turned out he had memorized the disciples' rules in just 10 minutes. Zhang was overjoyed, and after countless tests, he firmly believed Zhang Zihao was indeed a prodigy. And he was the father of the prodigy, always indifferent to parenting. Zhang Xiao seemed to have found newfound energy. Without consulting me, he quit his job and returned home, using all of our savings to nurture Zhang Zihao. Zhang Zihao lived up to his expectation, learning the entire elementary school curriculum by the age of 5, and was admitted to a key provincial high school as an exception. His fame soared, becoming a genius prodigy reported by major media outlet. The Zhang family was overjoyed, even adding a new page to the family tree for Zhang Zihao. But I always felt this wasn't a good thing. I worried that Zhang Zihao was a permanent genius. He might just be a little faster than others on this short stretch of road. When the time came for him to step down from the spotlight, he would fall harder than anyone else. I was woken up by a call from Zhang Xiao's mom, Yona. She always felt that if she didn't shout, the other person wouldn't hear. So every time she called, You're already so old, and you're causing a divorce. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? I rolled my eyes and said sullenly, I'm not causing a divorce. I really wanted a divorce. Zhang Xiao's mom laughed a couple of times, clearly not taking my words seriously. She just said, Do whatever you want. As soon as you leave, my son will hire a nanny. Anyway, it won't matter if you go back. If you have the ability, don't ever come back. I immediately hung up the phone. Sure enough, in their eyes, I was just a nanny for the Zhang family. I wasn't even as good as an nanny since I didn't get paid a single cent. Here's the translations. At cross-legged on the bed, took a few deep breaths, and then picked up my phone to contact my high school classmate Liu Yuan. It's been a while since we last talked. Old classmate. Yuan answered the phone, starting with congratulations. I read that article. You're now the mother of a genius. Congratulations. I forced a smile and said, Don't make fun of me. The media is exaggerating. By the way, I heard you've opened a law firm. Are you interested in taking my divorce case? Liu Yuan was surprised and asked repeatedly, Who's getting divorced? Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos. I replied firmly, then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos. I want a divorce. After hanging up the phone, I lay on the bed, feeling lighter than ever. There were no endless piles of laundry, no floors to scrub, and no father and son waiting to be fed at the dining table. Zhang awed me using Zhang Zhao's phone, asking where his shirt was. I changed the subject and asked, "Do you know why mom is leaving home?" Zhang Zihe replied coldly, "I don't know." I sighed and said, "Because I can understand German. I understood everything you and Dad said at the dinner table." Zhang Zihe fell silent for a moment before saying, "You can actually speak German." My shirt. My heart sank, and I couldn't help but scold him. "Don't you feel sorry for humiliating mom like that?" Zhang Zihe replied, his childish voice chillingly cold. "In our family, only people with high IQs have a say. Your education is too ordinary. You don't deserve respect. And I'll ask one last time. Where's my shirt?" I hung up the phone directly, just as I expected. Ji Hao didn't understand what it meant to be polite. I had taught him countless times, explaining the reasoning and even pretending to scold him. But he dismissed learning those lessons. Shang Xiao had told him that rules would bend for talented people, and Jiang Zihao fully agreed with that notion. After getting myself together, I hurried over to Liu Yuing's law firm. Liu Ying had changed quite a bit, especially his belly. He rubbed his nose and smiled awkwardly. "Long time no see. Yuna, you haven't changed at all." I chuckled lightly. "You're still as smooth talking as ever." We drafted the divorce agreement, and Liu Yuing repeatedly confirmed with me, "Are you sure you don't want to fight for custody? I feel like you're asking for a bit too little. Let's leave it like this," I said, taking a sip from a paper cup to suppress the bitterness in my throat. I don't want to get too entangled with Zhang Xiao. This condition is within his acceptable range. Liu Ying scratched his head, confused. "Yuna, do you think this divorce is a bit impulsive? You two don't have any emotional or financial dispute. There are some mother-in-law issues, but it's not like you're never speaking to each other. Besides, the child is already this old, still a prodigy. My marriage has always been a mistake," I said lightly, finally feeling a weight lift off my heart. I woke up too late. I should have realized when Zhang Xiao deliberately replaced the contraceptive pills, leading to my unexpected pregnancy. I shouldn't have waited until today to correct the mistake after raising the child to this point. Once Zhang Xiao received the divorce agreement, he could no longer sit still. "Yuna, are you out of your mind?" Xiao shouted angrily on the phone. "In a few days, it's C House promotion party. How many media outlets and TV stations will be there? You're causing a divorce now. I may lose faith, but I still have some dignity." Zhang Zihao had been admitted to a key provincial high school as an exception, and Zhang Zhao was preparing to host a grand promotion party, inviting media outlets and even high-ranking government officials. He viewed this promotion party as more important than his own life. Here's the translation: ignored his shouting and replied calmly, "I'm getting my divorce. You handle your banquet, and we won't interfere with each other." Zhang angrily responded, "Didn't we agree that you would attend this promotion party with me? What would I go for?" I retorted. Zhang Xiao fell silent. So I continued, to play the role of an ordinary college graduate, not very bright, who happened to give birth to a genius. Zhang Xiao gritted his teeth. "Did you snoop on my phone?" I actually saw the plan by accident. I never had a habit of checking Zhang Xiao's phone, but when I saw it, I still felt it all pain in my heart. I'd gotten pregnant while studying for exam, a child I hadn't wanted, but Zhang Xiao begged me, crying to keep the baby because he had a low sperm count, claiming that this child was a blessing from heaven. I softened. I held my diploma in one hand and my marriage third to other. And in the winter, I gave birth to Zhang Zihao. Then, when Zhang Zihao was 1 year old, I learned the truth from a drunken Zhang Zhou had deliberately switched the contraceptive pill. Zhang was arrogant. He didn't believe he had a low sperm count, so he needed an experiment to prove he was a real man. And I was that experiment. Unfortunately, I wasn't clear-headed either. I really gave up studying to go home and have a child, which offended my mentor, who had always looked out for me. 3 days later, Zhang Zihao's promotion party was held as scheduled, and major media outlets reported on it eagerly. At the party, Zhang Xiao and my mother-in-law, Li Jian, And even Zhang Zihao was slicked back with hair gel, wearing an ill-fitting little suit. A media representative asked, "Is mother not here?" Zhang Xiao immediately replied, "Zhang Zihao's mother rarely participates in his education. She's not good at attending events like this, so she didn't come." The media picked up on this key phrase and quickly followed up. What role did Zhang Zihao's mother play in nurturing the prodigy? Zhang Zhao pretended to think for a moment before saying, "She does well with household chores." A few scattered laughs came from the audience, but Zhang Zhao quickly shifted the topic, bringing everyone's attention back to Zhang Ziyu. "I'm glad everyone could join us for Zihao's promotion party. Before the banquet starts, I want to announce some good news." Zhang Xiao, full of pride, squatted down to embrace Zhang Zihao and said, "In the 15 days since receiving the admission notice, I has completely mastered the first-year junior high school curriculum." The crowd gasped in astonishment, and the continuous flashes of cameras made Zhang Zihao's quit comfortably. While Zhang Xiao was reveling in it, he went on in front of the media. "I believe Zihao can master the knowledge points of junior and senior high school within 3 years and take the college entrance exam, becoming the youngest candidate in history." As Zhang Zhi's video continued to gain traction, with mixed reactions from netizens, I felt increasingly uneasy. Although Zhang Zihao's attitude broke my heart, he was still the child I had carried for 10 months and fought to give birth to, so I cowed and let go. After the promotion party, Liu Ying, acting as my attorney, communicated with Zhang Xiao regarding the divorce. I also took a hands-off approach and discreetly contacted a senior from my college major, hoping he could help me find out about Professor Chen's stance and if I could get an apology opportunity. The senior first scolded me, making me feel ashamed. "Professor Chen has always been concerned about you. Recently, she was promoted to vice dean of the college, and during the appointment ceremony, she used you as a typical example to warn younger students not to give up on their studies easily." Hearing this made me feel even more ashamed. I didn't expect to become a negative example for younger students. It seemed Professor Chen was extremely disappointed in me. After hanging up, I felt a chaotic mix of emotion. When I started college, I was a rare female student in architecture, and I hit it off with Professor Chen, who carefully nurtured me and helped me connect with a leading figure in German architecture, giving me the opportunity to study abroad. Opportunities. But I gave that up to of a child. Professor Chen's disappointment in me was self-evident. Apart from sending me a congratulatory gift for my marriage, she hadn't contacted me since. I felt too embarrassed to reach out to Professor Chen, always making excuses to put it off, dragging it on for 5 whole years. Now that Professor Chen might give me a chance, I would definitely seize it. Not long after, Liu Ying brought me 2 pieces of news. The good news was that Zhang Xiao agreed to the divorce. The bad news was that he wanted me to leave with nothing. Liu Ying laughed in disbelief, really asking me where I'd found such a scumbag to marry. I was at a loss for words. I couldn't exactly admit that I'd been blind and foolish, could I? After discussing it with Liu, we decided to go back and have a face-to-face conversation with Zhang Xiao. Returning to Zhang's home after more than half a month, I felt as if I had entered another world. Zhang Zhe and Liu Jilin were waiting for me at home, and Liu Ying had obviously prepared in advance, contacting a local law firm he had worked with before and borrowing 2 young lawyers to accompany us. As expected, when Zhang Zhao opened the door and saw the 3 big men behind me, he instantly deflated. Zhang Zhao furrowed his brow, looking impatient. "What does this mean? Are you staging a protest with so many people?" I calmly walked into the house where I had lived for over a year, but it felt strangely unfamiliar. Li Jilin was sitting on the sofa, rolling her eyes at me. Actually, when I first got married, Li Jilin was quite nice to me, but later, when Zhang Zihao became the genius, Zhang Zhao became the genius's father, and Li Jilin felt she was the grandmother of the genius, even changing her social media account to genius Zhang Zihao's grandma Jilin. I ignored Li Jilin, looked around, and asked, "Where's Zihao?" Zhang Zhao plopped back onto the sofa, coldly snorting. "Aren't you getting a divorce? Why do you care about my son?" "Your son?" I laughed and shook my head. "I didn't know you." Zhang Zhao. could even have children. Liu Yuan. And Jiang Zhao's expression darkened a bit. Suddenly, I looked up and was surprised to see an unexpected person, Shang Zihao's kindergarten teacher, Wu Meinian, who was also known as the talent scout for geniuses. She opened the door with her fingerprint and naturally held Shang Zihao's hand, but didn't pull away from her. I gently squinted, a thought flashing through my mind. Wu clearly knew I was coming today. She was surprised to see me, and greeted me naturally. Long time no see. Sister Yu. I nodded and smiled in response. Long time no. Then I watched as Wu skillfully squatted down to take off Shang Zihao's shoe. Shang Zihao showed no discomfort, comfortably propping up his foot, waiting for Wu to put on his slippers. Their interaction gave me a strange sense of familiarity, as if what Wu was doing now was something I used to do. A weird feeling rose within me. Then Zhang Zihao got up from the shoe bench and walked toward his room, not even glancing in my direction. I couldn't hold back and called out to him. Didn't you see your mom? Only then did Shang Zihao turn around, looking disgusted, and said, I don't want to see you at all. For a moment, I felt a bit dazed. The lawyer was there to support me, and didn't know my family situation. Felt that Zhang Zihao was just a small child with a big temper, and couldn't help but educate him. How can you talk to your mom like that? His words ignited the fury deep within Zhang Zihao, and he suddenly picked up a decorative pot beside him and hurled it at me. Liu quickly pulled me aside. The pot shattered right in front of me, and I looked at Zhang Zihao in disbelief. My voice trembling. Zhang Zihao, do you know what you're doing? Zhang Zihao glared at me as if I were his mortal enemy and suddenly began to scream. It's all because of you. Your inferior genes have polluted my bloodline. I hate you. I hate you. I was taken aback by his madness, unable to stop myself from stepping back to paces. But Zhang Zihao continued to yell at me. If it weren't for you, I could have already passed. You should die. Die. He shouted while going wild, even trying to rush at me. Liu stood in front of me, and naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos. Wu quickly picked up Shang Zihao, soothing him softly. It's okay. Zihao, let's go back to the room and change your clothes. All right. Shang Zihao's eyes turned red, and he buried his head in what's next? Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos. I wish you were my mom. I watched as Wu carried Zhang Zihao into the room. Suddenly, I heard Li Jilin snicker behind me. I turned to look at her and saw her eyes filled with glee. You know, Li Jilin said, I'm not trying to be harsh, but for a mother to end up like you is quite unique. I clenched my fists as Li Jilin untimely walked toward Zhang Zihao's room, leaving the vast living room with only me and the lawyers who came with me. Zhao looked a bit tired. He rubbed his temples and, with a hint of helplessness, Yun, your lawyer friends might not understand, but you should know who allows us to live in this upscale neighborhood. You wanted divorce. I agree, but to take the money earned by my son. I took a deep breath, the pain from Zhang Zihao's earlier attitude still lingering, and tried to stay as calm as possible. Zhang Zhao, I want 600,000. It was the down payment my parents made when we bought the house. The housing prices have skyrocketed since then. That house has long since doubled in value. I just want 600,000. Isn't that too much to ask? Li promptly brought out relevant documents to prove I was entitled to that portion of the asset, even stating that I had the right to half of the marital property. Zheng Xiao's face shifted from green to pale. And finally, he waved his hand as if swatting away a fly. Fine. 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 Consider it as me owing you. As I left Shang's home, the sky began to darken. After saying goodbye to the two lawyers who had temporarily helped, you packed up the materials and offered to take me to my alma mater. I declined, as I needed some time alone to gather my thoughts. Zheng Zihao's words felt like a needle, almost piercing through my body. I couldn't even understand why he hated me so much. But just after taking a couple of steps, I heard Wu Mining's voice behind me. You now. I stopped and turned around to see Ms. Wu running toward me with a bag. You didn't take everything when you left. Here's the rest. I took the bag from her, which contained some skincare samples I had used before, along with some random bits of trash. Thank you, I said softly, preparing to leave. Mu cautiously explained. By the way, today Zihao was in a bad mood, so he lashed out. And sorry on his behalf. A twinge of discomfort flashed through me, and I replied. There's no need for you to apologize. This is a matter between Zihao and me. Ms. Wu's expression turned awkward, but she continued. Hao took a mock exam today for the high school entrance test, and his results weren't very good, so he's particularly upset with you. I hope you won't hold this against him. I felt a lump in my throat. Utterly annoyed, I interrupted Ms. You're overthinking, kid. Hao is my son, and I'm his mother. We don't need you to apologize for him. I turned to leave with the bag in hand, but Ms. Wu suddenly spoke up. I heard Zhang Xiao say that you want 600,000 for divorce. I think that's a bit excessive. You know Zhang Xiao still has to pay the mortgage. And this money is all earned by Zia. As a mother, taking money earned by your son in a divorce will just make you a laughingstock. I was taken aback and turned back to look at Ms., feeling as though her face was somewhat distorted. What gives you the right to meddle in my family's affairs? I sneered. Wu's face suddenly turned pale. Her lips pressed together, and she finally cast me a deep look before walking away. I suspected Zhang Xiao was cheating during our marriage. I messaged loyally while in the taxi, and he replied quickly, do you have any evidence? Not at the moment, but I just feel that Ms. Wu isn't the kind of person who can keep her cool. After closing my phone, I glanced down at the bag at my feet. It was the stuff Ms. Wu just chased after me to give. I rummaged through it and surprisingly found a safety talisman I had sought for Zhang Zihao last year. At that time, Zhang Zhao had been following Zhang Zhao to various interviews and business events and had inexplicably developed a high fever. After a full battery of tests, the cause remained indiagnosed. Feeling desperate, I'd gone to Shigansen to ask for a safety talisman. And to my surprise, Zhang Zhao gradually recovered, while I used to believe in the divine. Zhang Zhao dismissed it outright. But as a mother, when I felt helpless, I could only pray for my child's safety in hell. Yet now, my child would rather I were dead, all because he believed my genes had polluted his brilliant bloodline. It was truly a case of like father, like son, as Zhang Zhao was as arrogant as Zhang Xiao. Even though I tried my best to correct him, it was no match for his innate disposition. After getting out of the car, I tossed the bag of trash into the bin. Feeling a bit lighter in my heart, I found Professor Chen and noticed the gray hair at her temple. Before she could scold me, I sighed deeply. I cried until my eyes were red like a child. This left Professor Chen at a loss, as she hugged me and said, You know, I don't oppose love and marriage, but I hope my students can choose the place that suits them best. I had heard the same words 5 years ago, and now hearing them again stirred a mixture of emotions in me, like a vintage wine with various flavors. Finally, I found a place to vent and poured out my frustrations about Zhang Zhao, the court, Zhang Zihao, my failed marriage, and my family until I spoke about my dream. Suddenly, Professor Chen asked me, would you like to start over? It was dark when I left the school. I opened my phone to call a cab and, while waiting, checked my social media. Zhang Zihao's face appeared on the screen. I focused and realized this was Ms. Wu Mining's account. She had posted a selfie at the dining table, revealing only a quarter of her face, with Yao sitting beside her and Zhang Zhao across from him, with what looked like Li Jilin's sleeve beside Zhang Zhao. The caption read, heartbroken that my baby has to earn money to support a bad mom at such a young age. Here's a little hand to comfort him, although it didn't point directly at me. I understood she was talking about me. I clicked on her profile and saw her last post was a year ago. I sneered inwardly, surprised that Ms. Wu was such an impulsive person. I hadn't even signed the divorce agreement, and she was already acting like the mistress. After calming down, I posted something visible only to Ms. with a picture of Zhang Zihao as a baby. The caption read, "Every time I come across old photos, I regret my impulsiveness. If I apologize now, could I still earn forgiveness?" Returning to the hotel, I happened to run into Liu Yuing. He waved at me and said, "The agreement is ready. And if everything's fine, I'll arrange to send it to Zhang Xiao." I nodded and walked alongside him toward the hotel. Just as we were about to enter, I suddenly felt a chill run down my back. I turned to look but didn't notice anything unusual. Liu Ying asked with concern, "What's wrong?" I shook my head. "It's nothing. I'm just being paranoid." Although I felt Ms. Wu was impulsive, I didn't expect her to act so recklessly. At 2 in the morning, I cowled in sleep and was scrolling through my phone when I saw Ms. Wu's latest post. It was a photo of her in silk pajamas lying on the bedding set I'd carefully chosen, with Zhang Xiao sleeping beside her, mouth agape. I quickly took a screenshot and saved the image. Then, I opened the chat with Ms. "What do you mean?" I typed. Wu quickly replied, "You know, why are you still awake so late? I haven't divorced Zhang Xiao yet. Isn't it inappropriate for you to nest here now?" Wu sent a winking emoji and replied, "I'm tired. Let's talk another day." Putting down my phone, I recalled Zhang Xiao's sleeping face in the photo, and I felt disgusted. Then naturally took the phone away. I told Liu Yuing about this incident, and he retched a couple of times to express his feelings. "I can't stand this," Yuing said helplessly. "You know. Are you really just going to let those two dogs get away with this?" I thought it would be quick and decisive. But Ms. Wu has gone too far. I never expected Zhang Xiao would be with her, hiding it so well. Liu Yuing sighed. "Leave this to me. With Ms. Wu's temper, she probably can't keep anything hidden. If I can find substantial evidence of Zhang Xiao cheating during the marriage, will you be aiming for more assets?" I picked up my coffee cup and said coldly, "I've been selflessly serving those two. My son is rude. And his father is unclean. It's disgusting." 2 days later, Zhang Dou called, urging me to send the divorce agreement. "You know, didn't we agree? He'll give you 600,000. And you won't have to pay child support for Zihao. Are you having second thoughts?" Listening to Zhang Xiao's voice made me want to reach through the phone and slap him. I casually brushed him off and hung up the phone. "I was just about to call you," Liu Yuing said excitedly, clearly having discovered something. He continued, "You know, don't get upset when I tell you this, but Ms. Wu's not only been involved with Zhang Xiao for a long time, but she also gave birth to a daughter with him at the beginning of last year." My hand trembled, and I nearly dropped my phone. I asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" Yu Yuing exclaimed, "Zhang not only cheated during the marriage, but he also had a child. I've got the birth certificate. And the biological father is Zhang Xia," he added. "Yeah. While Zhang's actions are morally questionable and don't break any laws, on the evidence we have, you can fight for more assets." Listening to Liu Yuing's excited voice, my heart felt heavy. Professor Chen had repeatedly urged me to consider my relationship with Zhang Zhao carefully, and even my parents weren't satisfied with him. I'd foolishly entered a relationship with Zhang Xiao, married him, had a child, and ended up living in chaos. After hanging up, I stood on the balcony, letting the wind blow against me. Trying to clear my head, reflecting on my life thus far, I realized how foolish and humble I had been. Liu Ying organized the evidence and went to confront Zhang Xiao. I didn't follow him because I had more important matters to deal with. When Zhang Xiao nearly flooded my phone with calls, I finally found the time to answer. "You know, you animus woman," he roared. I shot back, "Zhang Xiao, I was only looking to get back the down payment for the house, but your little lover had the audacity to provoke me. Do you really think him easy to bully? Let me tell you, he's signed the agreement obediently, or we'll see each other in court. That social media account of Wu Mining's has already exposed your dirty laundry. Thanks to Liu Yuing's investigation, they had traced Wu Mining's social media account. She had documented everything in detail, treating the platform like a diary, including the car and house Zhang Xiao had bought her." Zhang Xiao was momentarily taken aback by my words, and after a pause, he muttered, "You know, Let's end this amicably. I really can't come up with 5 million. Otherwise, I'd have to sell a house plus. Yi Hao is at a critical stage. And you wouldn't want to affect his studies. Would you? I sneered. That car you bought Wu Mining costs over 1 million. Right? Are you hoping your little lover will pay it back? Sure enough. He sighed. 2 million. I'm begging you. For Zihao's sake. Let's be lenient. Before I could continue mocking him, Zhang Ziyao's voice suddenly came through the phone. I was instantly at a loss for words. Zhang Zihao gently said. Wu's really good to me. Can you please stop bullying her? I choked up and quietly asked, What miss? Wu bullied Mom first. And Mom is very sad. Zhang Zihao insisted. No way. Wu is so smart. How could she bully you? It's clear Liu who's too foolish to realize you've misunderstood her. If you bullying Miss, they'll never see you again. Zhang Yao handed the phone back to Zhang Xiao. You know, even our son is saying this now. I held back my tears. I'd start crying. I agreed and then immediately hung up. After Liu Yuing finalized the last version of the divorce agreement, he couldn't help but ask. I nodded. Yeah, 2 million. That's it. Liu Yuing shook his head regretfully, but I felt it was enough. From the moment Zhang Zihao was born, I only hoped for him to live safely, healthily, and happily. I never expected him to achieve greatness. Now, he was being praised as a prodigy, enjoying honors and attention, but had long lost his innocence. After signing the divorce agreement and completing a 1-month cooling-off period, Shang Xiao and I went to collect our divorce certificate. At the Civil Affairs Bureau, I saw Zhang Zihao, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. When I greeted him, he ignored me and instead ran into his grandmother's arms. Wu Mining was nowhere to be seen. Later, Liu Yuing gossiped with me. It seems like they've broken up. After all, going from 600,000 to 2 million must have bled Zhang Xiao dry. And it's all thanks to Wu Mining. I smiled and shook my head, realizing that whether it was Zhang Xiao, Wu Mining, or myself, we had all brought this upon ourselves. My phone dinged with a new message. Miss Yuna, congratulations on passing the second interview with our company. The official employment documents have been sent by email. Please check and respond in a timely manner. We look forward to creating a wonderful future together. Zhao put away the divorce certificate and asked casually, What is what's wrong? I shook my head and said, Nothing. Take good care of Zihao, and remember to take him to the ophthalmologist. Dao. His eyes can't be delayed any longer. Zhao waved his hand dismissively, looking impatient. Got it. We're divorced now, so stop worrying about so much. Watching his departing figure, I had a feeling this wouldn't be the last time I saw him. It had been 3 years since Shang Xiao and I divorced. During these 3 years, under Professor Chen's recommendation, I interviewed at a leading domestic architecture firm and successfully secured a position as an administrative assistant in the office. Although my colleagues often said it was a shame for someone with an architecture degree from a prestigious university to be doing administrative work, I felt it was the best arrangement fate could offer. After all, I had chosen marriage and motherhood right after graduation and had missed out on the best job opportunity. With so many talented individuals emerging over the years, even holding a diploma from a well-known school was of little use. The environment and market always favored those who were prepared. Yoji, our team wants to hold a meeting at 3 this afternoon. Which meeting room can we use? I snapped back to reality and immediately focused on workroom 1223 can be booked. Just follow the process. While cleaning the meeting room in the afternoon, my colleague Wang Qi suddenly asked, Did you watch The Invincible Brainiac last night? Xiao Chen quickly responded, Yeah. Isn't it the ultimate showdown between a prodigy and a robot? My hand paused as I adjusted the projector. Wang Qi became animated, preparing tea while saying, He Hao is amazing, especially in the final round under such pressure. He was so calm and could solve the problem. He's only 8 years old. How can he be so smart? I wonder what kind of family can raise a child like this. Xiao Chen interjected. I think it's all scripted. Plus the editing adds to the dramatic atmosphere. How impressive can an 8-year-old really be? Winky shook her head, looking profound. Gio is going to take the college entrance exam next month. He'll be the youngest examinee. How many points can he possibly get? Xiao Chen exclaimed, eyes wide in surprise. 8 years old, Winky replied, in an interview that he scored over 500 in the mock exam. If Zihao performs normally, he might become the youngest college student. As they talked about Zhang Zihao, I couldn't help but lower my head and smile bitterly. After the divorce, it seemed that Zhang Xiao hadn't paid much attention to Zhang Zihao's eyes, leading him to wear glasses at an early age. Over these 3 years, Zhang Ziha frequently participated in variety shows and business activities and even became the spokesperson for mother and baby brand. He had become a household name as a star prodigy. But whether that was a good or bad thing remained uncertain. This summer was especially hot, but the media buzz was even more intense. As the new generation prodigy took the college entrance exam at 8 years old, and even the mayor showed up at the examination venue to offer his support. In front of the camera, Zhang Zihao wore a cold expression, and his thick glasses made it hard to discern his emotions. On the other hand, who had successfully undergone a hair transplant, became the spokesperson. However, when the media asked Zhang Zihao about his ideal score, Zhao vaguely replied, Zihao is still young. He doesn't know how to cope with such situations. I've no expectations for my child's score. I just hope Zihao can enjoy this exam. I furrowed my brow, feeling that Zhang Xiao's words had a hidden meaning. A spokesperson replaced Zhang Zihao for the interview. After all, 3 days before the college entrance exam, Zhang suddenly contacted me, asking to borrow money. I've started a business with a friend, and cash flow is temporarily tight. Can you lend me $1 million to tide me over? They'll pay you back. I refused without hesitation. Xiao angrily retorted, you took $2 million from me back then. Is it hard to help me out now? I simply replied, I don't have the money, and hung up. Over the past 3 years, Zhang Xiao had frequently inquired about the $2 million, likely feeling resentful, thinking he had given me too much. I continued to prepare for my presentation. But recently, HR spoke with me about a vacancy in the administrative position within the design department. After discussions among the HR and design department leadership, they believed my background matched the role. I was asked to prepare a presentation and go through the internal transfer process. I was nearly in tears from gratitude. After all, my background is in architecture, and being able to work in architectural design or planning would be my ideal job. However, I didn't expect that as soon as I left the meeting, my colleagues in the administration department surrounded me. Sister Nana, are you the mother of the prodigy? I was taken aback. Puzzle, what do you mean? Wang Qi had a strange expression as she said, Zhang Zihao's college entrance exam results are out. He scored 150 skis. Then he gave an interview. Winky couldn't finish her sentence as I took her phone and opened the video, feeling a layer of sweat form in my palms. Zhang Zhou had a sullen face. He said, I learned about my parents' divorce during my exam preparation, which was a severe shock that made it difficult for me to concentrate, resulting in such poor scores. I'm very disappointed in myself and my mom. My heart sank sharply. Netizens dug up information about Zhang Zihao's mother, and then Zhang Zihao's dad said, it was you who cheated. Xiao released a set of photos showing me and Liu Yuying entering and exiting a hotel 3 years ago while discussing divorce matters. After seeing them, I felt a mix of anger and amusement. Lawyer Liu, I called Liu Yuying. Is Zhang Xiao out of his mind? Liu Ying was also helpless. I've already prepared a statement. Should I release it now? I sighed. If we don't release it, he can walk all over me. Liu Ying sent out a statement on behalf of the law firm, clearly indicating that he was my legal representative and providing scans of the contract and supplementary clauses. Subsequently, I also released a statement through the law firm's account, providing the divorce agreement and divorce certificate to prove that my marriage with Zhang Xiao ended 3 years ago. My colleagues were astonished when they saw it, and winked. I never expected Sister Nana to be the mother of a prodigy. Can you share your experience? What did you eat or drink during pregnancy to give birth to such a genius? I was speechless. Didn't you see the news? Zhang Zihao inherited his father's brains. It has nothing to do with me. Wang Qi shook her head. Even though Zhang Xiao has a master's degree, Sister Nana, you graduated from a key university too. It seems prodigies come from highly educated families. I was at a loss for words. I cowed and say that Xiang and his son looked down on my undergraduate degree. I didn't want to discuss Zhang Zihao with my colleague. After all, I had given up on him 3 years ago. I just didn't expect that Zhang Xiao clearly was planning to let me go. He even published a short essay openly accusing me of fulfilling my responsibility to give birth but neglecting my duty to raise Zhang Zihao. Not only did he take most of the assets after the divorce, but he also ignored Zhang Zihao entirely, causing immense harm to the child's fragile psyche. Moreover, he spent money on marketing, and various marketing accounts reposted the essay and fanned the flames, directing the public's outrage toward me. Liu Ying called, his tone unusually anxious. The situation isn't good. Public opinion is very unfavorable for you. Even our law firm's website has been targeted by netizens. Should we release evidence of Zhang Xiao's infidelity? I thought for a moment but decided to wait a bit longer. Zhang Xiao soon contacted me. To my surprise, he came to my door in person, catching me off guard. I got straight to the point. What do you want? Xiao didn't beat around the bush. He directly said, 150,000. I frowned, looking at the dark circles under his eyes, and asked, what do you need the money for? Zihao earning enough for you these past few years? You know nothing. Zhang Xiao suddenly exploded in anger, slamming his hand on the table and glaring at me. If you hadn't taken 2 million during the divorce, which cut off my cash flow, would I have ended up like this? And that idiot Zhang Zihuwei spent so much money tutoring him. And he only scored 150 skis. It's all your inferior genes messing up his brain. You should take responsibility. I couldn't understand or sympathize with him. So I told him to leave here and call the police. Zhang nervous at the mention of the police. But before leaving, he threatened, you know, I need money urgently. If you give me 150,000, they'll pay you back double once I'm back on my feet. But if you don't give me the money, you can wait for your reputation to be ruined. I lifted my phone and entered 3 numbers in front of him. Zhang put on his mask and left in disgrace. About an hour later, the online abuse against me peaked. I noticed that the marketing accounts were back at it, searing public opinion and revealing my personal information, including my workplace and home address. R then sent me a message: the group has decided to suspend you. A related notification has been sent to your email. Please check and respond. At that moment, I really felt the impact of public opinion. The incident continued to escalate, and news about me frequently trended, even surpassing popular celebrity. After all, situations like mine involving family, marriage, and child prodigies were relatively rare compared to the love-hate dramas in the entertainment industry. Adding to that was Zhang Xiao's deliberate provocation. I had become quite a notable figure. Liu Ying also expressed that it was difficult to handle. After all, he ran a personal law firm and was accustomed to dealing with regular cases. But he didn't know how to approach the situation. During my suspension, I was overwhelmed. Not only trying to reassure friends and family, but also dealing with various concerns. Professor Chen called to calm me down, advising that things would work out naturally and urging me not to act impulsively or hastily. I finally managed to breathe a little easier. At the same time, I received a notice from the company's disciplinary committee requiring me to go to the office to cooperate with the investigation. On the way, everyone pointed fingers at me. Even my colleagues in the department whispered among themselves. I submitted all the information regarding my divorce and clarified the situation between Zhang Zihao and Zhang Xiao. Then the company asked me to go home and wait for further notice. When I returned home, I was mentally and physically exhausted and took a nap, only to wake up to darkness, since my phone was on silent. When I finally checked it, a flood of messages poured in, causing the system to lag. There were messages of concern from colleagues and family, but more were malicious remarks from strangers. Like lurking insects on the internet, launching indiscriminate attacks at the slightest provocation. I looked at the evidence of Zhang Zhao's infidelity beside me. Yet deep inside, I was still struggling. I knew better than anyone that this evidence was my best counterattack. Once I released it, all of Zhang Zhao's provocations would be extinguished. But the thought of Zhang Zihao discovering his father's true nature through the internet made me hesitate. How disappointed would he be? He'd already lost his mother. And now would he have to lose his once trusted father too? I called Zhang Zihao, and after hanging up 3 times, he finally answered. Do you need something? Zhang Zihao's tone was cold, lacking any warmth for an 8-year-old. I felt a bit sad and aggrieved. I asked, Zihao, you've known that your dad and I separated 3 years ago. Why do you still shift the responsibility for your exam results onto us? Zhang Zihao snorted. Do you expect me to admit in front of everyone that I have a stupid mom? I couldn't help but interrupt him, speaking earnestly. See, why do you always say that your mom is stupid? I was among the top 10 in the city and got into a prestigious university. Amid achieving first place in my major for 4 consecutive years. Zhang Zihao hesitated slightly, then said, but you didn't get into graduate school. I sighed. It's not that I couldn't get in. I chose to give up the exam. Moreover, education doesn't represent everything, and grades can't determine it all. Suddenly, Zhang Zihao fell silent. After a long pause, he coldly, you don't need to make excuses for yourself. Dad is a graduate. Teacher Wu is also a graduate. Even Grandma went to college for seniors. In our family, you're the only one who doesn't strive for self-improvement. I really don't want you to be my mom anymore. After he hung up, I sat on the sofa in a daze for a long time. Suddenly, Liu Ying called Yuna. There's trouble. Someone at your workplace is leaking information, claiming that you got your position through favoritism. My mind went blank, and I quickly opened my phone to check the latest news. Sure enough, Edison named Yu Syndrome girl claimed that she got the administrative position in the company through campus recruitment 4 years ago with the highest comprehensive score and had worked diligently since then. She alleged that she was fired right before her probation period ended on the grounds of inability to perform the job during the probation period. She posted many essays, one accusing the company of insufficient grounds for her dismissal, and another questioning whether I had obtained my position through improper means. In the comment, even suggested that I was the mistress of a certain vice president of the company, but I didn't even know that leader. Liu Ying sighed. People really thrive on chaos. The public opinion was already unfavorable for us, and now with her involvement, even if we release solid evidence of Zhang Zhao's infidelity, the effect might not be ideal. Yuna, tell me the truth. You didn't get your job through favoritism, did you? I stared at the phone screen, my mind already in a muddle. If I were to delve deeper, my job did indeed come about through not so clean means, as it was my mentor, Professor Chen, who helped connect me to this opportunity. I thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, I was a housewife for 5 years. How could I have access to an industry-leading company? Professor Chen was an external design lecturer for the group. She sent me the recruitment information and helped me polish my resume. Liu Ying sighed deeply. Never mind. I'll think of another way. The situation had spiraled completely out of control, with Zhang Zhao continuously fanning the flames behind the scene, trying to shift the public's attention onto me. No one was focusing on Zhang Zihao's exam results anymore. He was still labeled as a genius, but he had such a morally corrupt mother that it led to his disappointing scores. There were even fans of the genius who collectively petitioned department to provide Zhang Zihao with a backup exam opportunity to retake the entrance exam. The law firm's website was hacked, and Liu Ying was overwhelmed. Professor Chen had also been affected by my situation and had suspended her classes. Although the group hadn't officially fired me yet, colleagues from the same department said that the legal and disciplinary departments were reviewing my information, and the department manager had to cooperate with the investigation every day. I really felt powerless. Liu Ying had tried to expose evidence of Zhang Zhao's infidelity, but it was quickly reported and deleted by emotional netizens, who condemned me as a failed mother and wife. I was accused of moral corruption and poor character, and even someone claiming to be my university alum spread rumors about my academic fraud. Professor Chen saw that post and called to comfort me, urging me not to act too hastily. I sighed helplessly, thinking that my worry wouldn't help the current situation. Just when I least expected it, a turning point arrived so quickly. On the 18th day after my suspension, the group held a press conference to publicly address the comments made by the netizen Yu Syndrome Girl. The spokesperson clearly stated that Yu Syndrome Girl, whose real name is Li Jinan, did indeed enter the group's administrative department through university recruitment. However, during her probation period, she often arrived late or left early without reason, abandoned her post, and failed to meet the standards for permanent employment. As a result, her immediate supervisors decided to terminate her employment and provided economic compensation according to relevant regulation. Due to a vacancy, the HR department posted related recruitment information on the group's official website, and I obtained the administrative position through normal channel, including submitting my resume, screening, and interviews, achieving the top comprehensive ranking. It was noted that I maintained a serious work attitude and got along well with colleagues, even receiving an opportunity for internal reassignment within the year. The group recognized my work capability and provided strong evidence proving that the means through which I obtained my position were compliant. After watching the video, I felt a warmth in my eyes, a sense of satisfaction rising within me. The spokesperson also mentioned that the relevant evidence had been submitted to the police, and the group would legally defend the reputation of its employees. Portions of the evidence, with sensitive information redacted, would be published on the official website to ensure transparency for the concerned netizen. My colleagues expressed their support. I received many messages, including one from Wanky saying, "I could have died from worry. The executive's ordered us not to contact you before the press conference, but we all believe you are in it. We're waiting for your return." Even the leader of the administrative department sent a message: "The report presentation for your reassignment will be scheduled after you return. Use this time to prepare well, and good luck." I was surprised when even Professor Chen, in her capacity as my mentor, published my exam results and major course grades to demonstrate my ability. The tide of public opinion shifted instantly. Especially after Yu Syndrome Girl released an apology video following her police investigation, which sparked heated discussions among netizens. Simultaneously, Li Yuing, with my tacit approval, released evidence of Zhang Zhao's infidelity, completely reversing the direction of public opinion. The overwhelming accusations that had once targeted me shifted to Zhang Xiao, and even Zhang Feihao faced scrutiny. Some people began to question whether the genius label was genuine or not. In fact, there were grounds for the netizens' doubts. After Zhang Ziho's exam results were released, crew members from a production disclosed that the genius versus robots storyline was scripted, and that the so-called genius was merely a child slightly smarter than his peers, nowhere near a true prodigy. At that time, and the so-called revelations from the crew did not attract much attention. However, as events unfolded, those revelations resurfaced. Subsequently, more insiders continued to expose information, claiming that Zhang Ziha was merely a very intelligent and arrogant child, not a genius at all. Meanwhile, some videos were also leaked. Li Jilin was caught cutting in line at a supermarket, and when called out, she boasted that she was the grandmother of a genius, insulting others for not being worthy to buy the same things as her. Zhang Xiao, on the other hand, bragged about his genes backstage during a show, making crude jokes to female staff members. Zhang Ziha represented the epitome of rudeness. He would yell and scream whenever he was unhappy, even resorting to physical violence. Display typical brat behavior. Wu Meining, third party who destroyed my marriage, revealed her identity before netizens could expose her. However, she presented herself as a victim, claiming that Zhang Xiao not only cheated during the marriage but also manipulated her into having a child, only to abandon them when he found out it was a girl. I had known for a long time that Wu Meining hadn't officially taken Zhang's side after my divorce. Zhang Dao had complained that it was her who had handed the evidence over to me, allowing me to take away 2 million. Their relationship ended bitterly, which seemed fitting, as evildoers tend to meet their match. After this farce lasted for 40 days, I received a notice to return to work. Upon returning to my position, I sincerely thanked my superiors, as I had never expected the group to speak up for me, a seemingly insignificant employee. The department head patted my shoulder and smiled, saying, "You have been diligent in your work and got along well with your colleagues. Your character is evident to all. Moreover, this matter, aside from being a personal issue for you, also involves former employees slandering the company. The company will certainly not stand idly by, so you shouldn't feel so much psychological pressure. Just prepare well for next Wednesday's reassignment report." After returning to work, I became busy again. Liu Ying gained immense recognition from this incident, and it was said that the law firm was so busy that they started hiring more staff. I thought we were done for. I never imagined your company and teachers would publicly support you. With such authoritative backing, you've really made it through, Liu Ying exclaimed, expressing a sense of survival after a disaster. I couldn't help but share in that feeling. Zhang Ziho's genius persona completely collapsed, with revelations of score manipulation, scripted reality shows, and exorbitant contracts all coming to light. Meanwhile, Geng Xiao's gambling addiction was also exposed. Greed leads to downfall. As Zhang Yihao became increasingly successful with his genius persona, Zhang grew increasingly dissatisfied. He actually developed a gambling addiction during our marriage. When Zhang Xinkang could not keep up with Zhang Zhou's spending, he began to rack his brain for ways to acquire more wealth. Initially, it started with investment and financial management, but it soon transformed into lending for high interest, eventually evolving into illegal fundraising. It's no wonder that during the 3 years of our divorce, he had his eyes set on the 2 million I had. Recently, the farce of genius fans petitioning the Ministry of Education for the use of backup test papers was also orchestrated by him. Then, he managed to raise a considerable amount of money to cover his gambling debts. Zhang Xiao was arrested and imprisoned for illegal fundraising, and shortly thereafter, Li Jilan contacted me. "Zhang Zhou is also your son. You can't just abandon him," she said before disappearing, and I never saw her again. I was shocked to find Zhang Zihao had lost it. As soon as he shouted loudly, emotionally agitated, even foaming at the mouth and convulsing on the floor. I was both angry and frustrated, quickly rushing him to the hospital. After examination, the doctor diagnosed him with schizophrenia. The causes of schizophrenia are still unclear. Environmental and psychological factors may increase the risk of developing it, the doctor said, shaking his head at Zhang Ziho's condition. This situation will have profound effects on the child's future. Let's start active treatment. Following the doctor's advice, I arranged for Zhang Zihao to be transferred to a more specialized psychiatric hospital. If his condition did not improve, the subsequent treatment costs would exceed 1 million. I looked at the bill and smiled helplessly, realizing Wu Maining's earlier words had come true. She had accused me of taking money that Zhang Zihao earned through our divorce, and now it was circling back to be spent on him. After settling Zhang Zihao, I received a call from Liu Ying on my way back to the company, informing me that Zhang Xiao had been sentenced to 15 years. I felt a mix of emotions, never expecting we would end up here. Zhang Xiao, greedy and selfish. Yet I still chose to date and marry him, ultimately leading to a chaotic life. I admit Zhang Xiao at the wrong time and made the wrong decision to give birth to Zhang Ziha. The fact that Zhang Ziha turned out this way was not solely Zheng Xiao's fault. It was also mine. I had not provided him with the proper guidance nor fulfilled my responsibilities as a mother. Now, Zhang Ziha had become a burden, which felt like my just desert.